So let us look how we can create a VPC in the AWS Management Console. So the first thing I want to do is to go to my services, then I will select VPCs. Now you could use the VPC wizard similar to what we did in the Cloud Practitioner class. But now I want to do this VPC creation from scratch, just to understand most of the VPC components that we are using to build our own private network in AWS. Understanding the VPC is very important to pass the solution architect exam. So I will click now in your VPC from the virtual private cloud, then I will click on create a VPC. I'm going to create a VPC and I will give it a name, and in this name I'm going to call it demo VPC. Now the CIDR block that I want to use is going to be 10.0.0.0 with a /16. This means that this VPC is going to have about 65,536 available IP, so I could segment that VPC further into more subnet. Now let me create a VPC. Now about the default tenancy, you can use a dedicated tenancy or a default one. This means you are going to build a dedicated VPC, especially if you want to meet a regulation requirement or a licensing requirement. Now for this demo, we're going to use default. Click on create a VPC. Now once you create a VPC, the VPC will appear here in your VPC's console. Select the VPC, and now from the actions menu, I want to enable DNS host names. This will give any EC2 I launch inside this VPC a DNS name. Now let me create in that demo VPC, let me create a new subnet, and I will call this my public subnet. So I'm going to create a subnet, select the demo VPC, give the subnet name public subnet, and let me place this in the first availability zone of US East 1A. You can see I have 6 availability zone, which means I could create 6 available public subnet for each AZ. For this subnet, I'm going to give this IP address 10.0.0.1 with a /24, which means I'm going to get up to 2 to the power 8 available IPs minus 5, which are the 5 IPs reserved for AWS. Now let me create this subnet. Now I want to select my subnet, and from the action menu, I want to do modify auto assign IP address. So from action, edit subnet setting, enable auto assign public IP address. Then click on save. Let me next create a private subnet. So I'm going to select the demo VPC. I will call this subnet a private subnet, and this will be also in my first availability zone, and I will give it the IP address 10.0.2.0 with a /24. Click on create. Now let us create a NAT gateway, because I want now my public subnet. If I launch an EC2 instance in my public subnet, I want those EC2 instances to have both connection to the internet, inbound and outbound. So let me click on create an internet gateway. I will call it demo IGW and create a NAT gateway. Now if we go back, we will see from the action menu of the internet gateway that I just created that I can attach this to a specific VPC. So from actions, attach to a VPC, you can select the demo VPC. You could also use that command line interface if you are using the CLI to attach a specific VPC to this internet gateway. Now let us go to the route table, and we want to configure the route table. Now be careful when you go to the route table. You must be sure that this route table belongs to the demo VPC, because most likely you will have a default VPC created in your region by AWS. So I'm going to select the route table with main equal yes in the VPC ID with demo VPC. Now let me edit this, and I will call this public route table. Now it's a good practice, and I always prefer to use the main equal yes for my private route table, but if you want to use it for your public route table similar to this demo, feel free to do so. Now in the routes, you will find that this route table is telling my VPC that any EC2 wants to communicate inside the VPC network, they need to go and use the destination local. If I want them to use my internet gateway for anything else, because this is a public route table, I need to select any IP. Now the destination will be Internet Gateway, and I will be able to select my DIM IGW and save the changes. Now in the subnet association, I want to point now my public subnet to my public route table. And this is, from now on, this subnet will be act as a public subnet because it has a destination route to the internet gateway. Now let us go back and create a NAT gateway because I want my NAT gateway to be used by my private instances. When you click on create NAT gateway, give it the name demo NAT. Now this NAT will be placed on my private in my public subnet, and it will be used for my private instances. So I'm going to allocate an elastic IP for the interface that I will place on the public subnet, and it will have also a private IP used by my private instances. Now if you go to the route table, click on create route table, and I will call this a private route table, and let me now put it in demo VPC and create. Now in the routes of this private route table, I need to edit, add another route for any IP. Now this should go and take the traffic to my NAT gateway, which is the one I just created, demo NAT, and then I save the changes. For subnet association, I need to edit the subnet associations, and I will select now the private subnet, which means any EC2 instance running in the private instance will use the NAT gateway in order to reach the internet.